Senator Ron Johnson. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this man is the definition of caucasity. Not audacity, but caucasity. If I had the kind of confidence that this man has right now, there's no telling where I would be in life. Senator Ron Johnson out of Wisconsin was the single vote out of all of the US Senate in 2020 to stop Juneteenth from becoming a holiday. And he really was the single vote that prolonged it in 2021. But he decided to just, I don't know, change his mind. Now, the reason why he said he was against Juneteenth becoming a federal holiday was because it just costs too much money. Obviously, we cannot celebrate the freedom of enslaved individuals in this country because it just costs too much money to add that to the federal holiday list. Let me remind you, 47 states, including the District of Columbia, already celebrated and acknowledged Juneteenth. So you're really only adding 3 additional states, by the way. And let me also say this, I get it. We don't send politicians to DC to give us holidays. We send them there to give us policies. But damn it, it's still a good holiday. Now, Ron Johnson, the US senator that opposed it, eventually voted for it reluctantly, decided to show up at a Juneteenth celebration. Well, here's how that went. They said, we don't want you here. They booed him. He walked around the crowd as if he was the guy who made it happen, the guy who promoted it, and the guy who absolutely supported it. He did not support it. Now, remember, this crowd is a very diverse crowd. A lot of individuals coming together to celebrate this remarkable opportunity at coalition building. Well, Senator Ron Johnson comes there. The crowd becomes very irritated with his presence and they start to boo him. Good for them, by the way. Good for them, right? Now, here's what Ron Johnson, according to the HuffPost, said. Johnson was not pleased, complaining to the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel that his reception is, and I quote, not how to heal a nation. He blames them for being aggressive in their booing because he opposed some level of progression for black people in America. I love the fact that Representative David Bowen, and I gotta say this, Representative, this was petty, brother, but I like your style. Here's what Representative Bowen tweeted during this rally. Just in case the news doesn't report it, black residents booed Ron Johnson and ran his hypocritical ass out of Milwaukee. Hashtag Juneteenth 2021 celebration for claiming to support Juneteenth after previously voting against it. Gotta love America's holiday. Signed, Representative David F. Bowen. I gotta get that brother on the show. But before I get that brother on the show, I have with me the remarkable editor for Insider's Voice of Color, Kenya Evelyn, on the program. Kenya, good day, welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on.
Okay, this is kind of your neck of the woods right here. We got to talk about first the caucasity of Senator Johnson. I mean, he came strolling through there like he was a superhero, but in fact, he's a supervillain to that crowd. Explain this to me, I don't get it.
Well, I have to shout out the hometown of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Whether it be the Milwaukee Bucks winning their series later on that evening, or it be the welcome, the Brew City welcome they gave Senator Ron Johnson that day, Milwaukee clearly won Juneteenth. But that's neither here nor there. I think what we see happening in Milwaukee, what we saw with the audacity of Ron Johnson, is what happens at the state and local level in terms of politics in Wisconsin all the time. Milwaukee is a convenient tool for people and Juneteenth events, which, like David Bowen was saying, a colleague of mine or someone I've interviewed many times, as he's been saying, he's one of those political leaders who's been out there every night with either the People's Revolution calling for racial justice reform or working and walking along with Black men who are trying to curb gun violence in the city. These are the leaders who are there every day. Those are the leaders who are there at these Juneteenth festivals and Juneteenth celebrations that Milwaukee has been known for. And so when you have outside leaders who any other time are running counter to the racial progress that these very advocates are championing, and when you're running parallel counter to even the celebration of jubilation that is Juneteenth, it takes a lot of audacity for you to expect to show up and be revered once you arrive, and then admonish those who don't dare acknowledge you as some saving grace or some uniting force on their long existing event.
Let me tell you why I like what happened to Senator Ron Johnson. And you know this, being a member of the Black community, like I am. We have played this we have been very courteous to politicians who have been adversarial to our policy progress in certain arenas. Let me give an example. The Black church. Politicians routinely, Republican and Democrats, they will go into Black churches during election time, even though they have represented or misrepresented the Black community. But we have considered those opportunities to be sacred. We typically do not give any criticism. We allow them an opportunity to join us, to say what they want to say. I'm just tired of that. So him coming to this Juneteenth event, I think he was under an impression that maybe the crowd obviously would not agree with him on his ideological stance, but they would still be respectful enough not to polarize him in that way. I say polarize on, because we have to stop treating these individuals with kid gloves. I'm not for an insurrectionist type uprising. I'm not a terrorist, nor am I a terrorist supervisor or sympathizer. What I am is an individual who cares enough about policy to boldly say in public places, I disagree with your policy because you are a policymaker, and this is how I disagree with your policy, and I'm well within my constitutional freedom of speech to do it this way.
Absolutely, we're seeing the continuation of accountability that came from racial justice protests even last year. And Milwaukee is in a specific position where they can uniquely call out these very legislators. They were inundated by the early outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic. Milwaukee was an early hotspot. We saw the economic decline decimate cities across the Midwest disproportionately. And Black Milwaukeeans are not unique to that. In fact, the DNC last year, which was supposed to be a symbol or a catalyst for economic recovery, hit Black businesses in particular hard when it was canceled last year. And Democrats up and said, okay, well, we'll make it a nice little event at a convention center. And even there was speculation about whether there was anything happening in there. I mean, Milwaukeeans in particular have every more reason to say, what are you doing for our communities? Not just come election time, not just when you need our votes, as Milwaukee, along with Atlanta, along with Philadelphia, as we saw across the country, were instrumental in helping Democrats win certain states. But come back when it's time to talk about jobs. Come back when it's time to talk about the disparities in our educational systems. And that's exactly what folks out there who are challenging Ron Johnson are doing. And it's not just a matter of you are explicitly blocking legislation that would have acknowledged this day federally to begin with, but it's also where are you outside of these instances? The same way that Milwaukee is one of the most segregated cities in America, where just about any given moment you won't it will be hard pressed, except for along the lakeshore, to find white faces in the city of Milwaukee anyway. Don't parachute into our communities that you usually use the highway to avoid the other 364 days of the year. Don't parachute into them now to feign like bipartisanship or acknowledging our culture and our existence in this state that has long been there. Don't act like that's valuable to you now, when you've been willing to be the obstructionist that kept celebrations like this, celebrations that across the country is not only the largest, but one of the longest outside of Galveston. You didn't care to acknowledge throughout his more than 20-year history. Don't show up now.
Very well said, sister. Very well said. Ron Johnson, even outside of the context of the Juneteenth vote, is antithetical to policy that would help that same community. So they didn't just boo him because of Juneteenth. Those boos also included his policy stance for years on other items as well.